and opinion. And I forgot what we've called the show tonight. Probably something about Wayne Smith, and or maybe I didn't even put a name in. Maybe it's just episode whatever. Who knows? But anyway, we're going to be talking about Wayne Smith's comments around radical law changes. And we're also going to probably, if we have enough time after that, we'll talk about Super Rugby, the Six Nations, the Women's Six Nations, the Major League Rugby, the ARC, and oh my word, there's just so much rugby going on. So let me welcome my two guests this evening. We have Ashwin and Stephen. Stephen, how are you doing, sir? Sirs.
First of all, I'm very good, thank you. How are you guys this evening? And it's always a pleasure to be on the TD.
And Ashwin's on silent. Fantastic. So,
oh, you're just silent, mate. Yeah, look, yeah. It's just like, I'm just saving it all.
Saving it all for later. Okay. Now, Ashwin, you're wearing a bit of a natty shirt there. Do you want to explain why?
Oh, yeah, so we'll go straight to it. The exciting news. So, basically, in just under a fortnight now, DrivingMaul will be presenting a watch party at the Waitemata Rugby Club in Auckland. So sorry for all those people outside of Auckland, but this is our first watch party that we're running like this. Great event. It's going to be Huggy Buddies versus the Blues. Sunday, I think kickoffs are about 11, but we'll be starting off festivities before that with our guest Ronnie Clark. We'll be having a nice chat, or Paul will be having a nice chat with Mr. Clark on the sofas at Waitemata Rugby Club. And then obviously at halftime, we'll have a bit of a review of how the first half's gone, and then post-match discussion after the game. So yeah, details will be popping up on the DrivingMaul various social media sites on how you can get your tickets.
They will. And just to let you know, it will cost $25, and that will include a buffet brunch. And I think a cup of tea or coffee as well. Hey, look at that. We're throwing... there will be a cash bar from 11 o'clock, I think it is. Kickoff is 10:40. And so we'll have that interview with Ronnie Clark. And then the three of us will get up on stage and tell you what's going to happen during the show, during the match. And also, there's a rumour of another guest as well. So we may have two people to talk to. So I think a current player is going to be the other person. But can't... That's not been confirmed by Waitemata Rugby Club at this stage. So yes, looking forward to that. It's going to be an absolute cracker. So do join us at Waitemata Rugby Club on the 3rd of March, Sunday morning. Tickets will be available via, all the DrivingMaul social media channels. I will be shouting from the rooftops once I get the link. So.
And just the significance of the shirt was that our guest obviously was wearing this when he won his first title with the Blues. Well, not this specific one, but one like it.
His first of two titles with the Blues, as well as his
97, 98,
as well as picking up 156 caps for the Blues. For Auckland, and playing a couple of times for the Highlanders, and also getting some double figures caps for the All Blacks as well. So there we go. So let's kick off then. Wayne Smith, and has gone through and said basically that the game needs a radical overhaul. It needs radical change. So let's jump straight into a couple of those. First one he goes is double tackles. I'm going to read out what he said here. We've got a lot of double tackles today. It would be great if we could outlaw them. But just having your own personal coaching rule about who goes low and who goes above him would save a lot of head injuries, because there are a hell of a lot of clashes in two-man tackles. So, as a man who goes down the gym and does some training of people, Stephen, are coaches getting the coaching wrong on this?
Yeah, I suppose there's plenty to think about. I do wonder though, if the team that's actually got the ball have already got a lot of rights at the minute. I think if you make one-on-one tackles, I think you give them even more rights, because the reality is we all come in different shapes and sizes, and when you've got a big man who's a big ball carrier, you need two people involved in the tackle. Hopefully some low, some high, especially just to basically cut them down. Listen, if they're worried about head injuries so much, why not everybody just wears headgear and it's compulsory?
Because headgear doesn't actually help with head injuries. Okay, so this is the problem. Scrum, and as we've seen with headgear in NFL, the headgear doesn't actually help with concussions. It helps with other things, but not concussion. Unfortunately.
Yeah, basically the premise there is the fact that obviously the brain is suspended in liquid. So although you've got the headgear, the headgear takes that impact on the outside, but then obviously with the momentum, the brain is still in motion, hitting the side of the inside of the skull, I believe, is the theory on that one.
Yep. There's some good clips of little GIFs in YouTube showing you how the skull moves, and then you see the brain shaking around inside afterwards. And that actually it's not. The one thing you can do is to strengthen your neck, and that does help with the with that kind of thing. And that's been proven via boxing. That actually having a strong neck does happen, and hence that's an area that the players need to definitely to put a lot of strength and conditioning into because that will help them.
So we're all got to be props.
So
look, I mean, the interesting thing around that whole double tackle thing, the protection and the double tackles with what Wayne Smith's alluding to here is not for the person holding the ball. It's for the two tacklers, because most of the time what we're seeing with the double tackle is our players, because they wrap around and they end up headbutting their own teammate as they wrap around, hitting their heads on the other side of the person.
Yeah, a lot of the impacts coming on the especially on the advantage line with defences rushing up, and I think that's where a lot of those particular collisions are happening. But there's the odd occasion. I mean to say you saw Nonu. I just forget who he ran over. Was it Richie Moanga that he ran over on Saturday night? Now that
a few times.
That could have turned out quite badly for Moanga, and he's a big man. But you just suspect on those occasions that Moanga just got his head in the wrong place. You've just got to chop, just got his target zone wrong. And hence he was quite lucky he never got knee on head at that time and just basically got run over.
I think there is actually a valid point there in terms of Wayne Smith. Is the fact is that we really aren't teaching our kids, I suppose, at that early stage the right tackle techniques well enough. There's too many instances where they're seeing, even at a senior level, poor tackle technique. And it's sort of like, that's the problem. Heads in the wrong places. It's imperative. It really is imperative. Just in a one-on-one tackle, making sure that your head is in the right place, so your head's not taking the momentum of the body coming forward of the person you're tackling. It's actually behind the player effectively. So there's actually, I think, a lot of education needs to be done around the tackle situation. And I suppose, if you can't, as Steve's alluded to, you can't take the double tackle out of the game, because just imagine two Damian McKenzies trying to tackle a Brody Retallick. It just doesn't work, does it?
Well, to me, my thing is that you'd basically free up. I mean, one of the other things that's come out from France, because in France they've had a couple of deaths this year, which is obviously very sad, through head injuries. And one of the things they're trying to suggest is that you should lower the tackling to the waist height only, which then becomes a free for all for offloading, which is going to create, which is why tackling has gone higher over the last decade, because to stop that offloading.
And then if we get a free for all, and offloading, then Stephen Jones is going to refer to it as basketball even more.
Yeah, and the other thing is, you might as well just, if you're a professional team, you might as well just go for out and out size, guys who can carry the ball. Just like the team that's got the ball carrier at the moment, I reckon they've already got a lot of rights going for them. There's not a lot of rights for the defending team at the minute. And okay, you could be sort of talking about time and possession, but to try and turn the ball over against a really, really big pack is very, very difficult, unless you basically go in and try to rip the ball, or you're strong like a Kiriuani and you can hold guys up.
Well, let's talk about Jackling then, because this is another one of the ones he's talked about as well. So I'll read through his piece now. Getting over ball as a jackler, that's really dangerous, isn't it? That's a problem for the guy clearing out as well as the guy getting smashed. Sam Kay misjudged it slightly. His head hit a hip and he breaks his neck. There are there's a lot of dangerous situations out there. If you enter and you've won the contest, I can't understand why they, arriving players, don't have to leave you alone. If you've been good enough to make the tackle and get up, or come in when the tackle is made and got over the top, in those situations maybe we've got to let that player have rights to the ball. Now, we're talking here, for me, a couple of problems with this one is it's split-second decisions, isn't it? As to kind of like who have they already got over? Is it too late for me to hit or not? And I think that's going to. How do we then judge? I mean, we have enough areas where we're asking referees to make a judgment call, and this again would be another one where we're looking at basically seeing a situation where you kind of, has that person got over, or how long do you give them before no one else is allowed to enter the ruck? Would be really a very difficult one, I think.
Yeah, listen, a lot I'd like to see them tweak is, and a lot of the players now, and even it's a great view when you watch your game end on, because you often watch players and you think to yourself, gee, they're not on their feet, but what they're basically doing is arching their legs so wide now, they're actually getting down really, really low over the ball, almost to the point where you actually wondering if they're actually supporting their own body weight. And there's that rule where they say you put your hands on the ground. Well, in a lot of cases, the players are really, in a weird way, just trying to protect themselves. If you know what I mean, they've already got their hands forward of the jackal, and they kind of get penalised for it. You know, to me, if it's a clean jackal and they've let the release happen, as far as I'm concerned, play on. There's already enough rules in that particular breakdown, and I don't know. It seems to me some guys who that shorter, chunkier body shape seem to be more proficient at it. But I'm saying that you do get the odd play. I think Scott Barrett got a really good turnover, a crucial one too, against the Blues on Saturday night. So, gee whiz, it's a tricky one because the jackal is an art, and you've got to. But I'm saying that my only real issue with it is, do you maybe let players go support their body weight on somebody else just to make it safer? Who knows?
I'm gonna go the other way for that one actually, because I think if they actually started policing the breakdown better, they would actually find that it's actually less chance of the jackler getting injured. So I remember reading an article in the last couple of months, and who was the best jackler in World Rugby?
David
You
Pocock,
probably sort of David Pocock.
Yep.
So they analysed David Pocock, and in most situations when David Pocock, and actually I'll ask the second. So who was the most injury-prone forward in World Rugby? David Pocock. He's actually a very banged-up man. Now they analysed his jackling that he has done and that he does, and what they found that most of the time he is jackling illegally. So that means that he's actually not supporting his body weight without putting his hands where he's not supposed to, or not actually maintaining his position correctly. Now, by bracing, so with what you're saying, Steve, by bracing and actually creating yourself as a wall, you're actually taking more of a force. If you're now just on the ball, you're actually you're floppy, for want of a better term. As the player comes to clean out, you're loose and you'll actually just roll over the top instead of taking an impact. So the fact that they brace illegally by putting their hands forward of the ball, which they're not allowed to do, they're actually creating more of a target for themselves and taking more of an impact, because now they're braced, that momentum and energy gets released into them instead of them just falling over backwards over the ruck. And if they've been lucky enough to get hands on the ball, the ball goes with them. If they haven't, then they just get cleaned out.
One thing I sort of did notice watching a lot of the games of the weekend, the jackler is also getting cleaned out from the side
Oh, yeah.
as well, and that was just happening so many times on Saturday night. It was absolutely ridiculous. So he was getting illegally taken out from the side, and you talk about policing. That's something, and it's really funny. We don't have officials that are end on, but man, sometimes some of the stuff that you do see end on, you think, wow, this is crazy.
We were both at, obviously sitting on the West End at Eden Park on Saturday night, and the number of times I called the Blues and I said, geez, they were lucky for not getting caught on that one, because they were basically coming in on the angle into a ruck, and both teams are doing. Obviously, we're more vocal and raucous about it when the Crusaders were doing it, and you just sheepishly hide when the Blues were doing it. But both teams absolutely. So again, it comes down to, if we actually there's measures within the game to protect the players, we need to use those measures better. And that's one of them is obviously coming in from the side, and the other one is what I alluded to. Don't let the jackler brace himself by putting his hands past the ball and down on the ground, because he's actually, as I said, he's taking more of the force when he's getting hit, as opposed to when he's just on the ball and can be brushed over the top.
Yeah, and it's interesting that whilst, I mean, the breakdown and the ruck is getting a lot of attention at the moment, and yet the stats say it's actually tackles are where players get injured more than actually the breakdown. So even though we have some of these wild clear-outs, for some reason they're not actually, it doesn't appear to be as dangerous as tackles, which is interesting from a statistical point of view. I guess one of the other things that I don't remember jackling when I was a kid playing rugby, we all sort of try to just push each other off the ball, whereas now it seems to be a lot of players just going to ground, so they can't be pushed off, and it's, again, not being called for going off their feet. Players need to stay on their feet and push over the ball is how we used to do it in the old days, but that seems to have gone away a lot of the time nowadays.
Look, and just in saying one thing you're mentioning about, I mean, obviously the breakdown isn't actually where majority of the injury is happening, but one thing to make the breakdowns even safer is the fact is that make the rule that you have to bind it. Again, we've talked about it. I don't know if it was a rule or not, but one thing we did when we played the game many years ago was that you bind with somebody before you enter. That reduced the ability to really build up a head of steam as an individual to go in there, right?
I think the big difference is now, Ashwin, I think back in the day you kind of anticipated where the breakdowns were going to be. In the modern game, everybody is now a jackler, everybody is now a cleaner, and if there's nobody out, there's nobody around, you're that first cleaner. Long as you stay on your feet and enter through what's actually the gate.
But if you want to make it safer, and reduce that collision, because it's about collision. Everything that we'll talk about tonight is about collision and impact. So if you want to reduce that, then basically saying, hey, look, you have to bind before you enter through the gate. As you say, the ball shifted and anything, a breakdown can be anywhere. But it also protects the jackler, because that means that the team that wants to clean out actually has to take a bit more time, gives them the opportunity to steal the ball.
It does. The other one is it's actually something that I found funny, was someone mentioned a while back now, was why are forwards called the pack? Because they used to go around as a group of players, whereas nowadays you find they're spread out all over the pitch and they're not all together. So it's no longer a pack; it's now just forwards spread out around the pitch, which is interesting to see how that sort of think about it. That's why the name the pack came around, was because forwards generally travel as a group around the pitch, rather than rather than having a Dane Coles sprinting down the wing on his own with no other forwards within a country mile of him. Another area he talks about is high balls, which is obviously one that I guess kind of on the whole got dealt with a while back. But he goes on to say, high ball, do we say that only the receiving team can go up in the air for the ball, or does everyone have to stay on the ground? Unless everyone stays on the ground, someone has got to go above the crowd to claim the ball. These contests are really dangerous, so perhaps the laws can be adjusted there. I actually think they've probably got this one quite right now. Got the balance of this one right. But basically, the person in the air has got to be left alone. And if you go through that area where the ball's coming down, it's your responsibility to get out of the way of him. You can't just stand around where the ball is coming down. So to me, I say I'm quite happy with that one personally. I think we sort of sorted that one out about 2 or 3 seasons ago now. But he seems to think it's still an issue. I don't know. Where do you guys think?
Oh, well, either that or you say you can't jump for the ball. You have to keep your feet on the ground. I don't know. Listen, if 2 guys go up in the air at the same time, it's a contest in the same way that 2 guys going up in a line-out are contesting a ball. And there's a bit of risk involved in that. And the reality is you can't, when you're going up in the air, you can't touch the other guy, or you can't interfere with any part of his person or body, if you know what I mean. But you're also relying on your lifters to play their part as well. Yeah, to me, it's unfortunate. If we don't often. Well, I can't think of any players that have had to retire because they've had a aerial contest and come down on the ground so hard that they've had to retire. There's the odd one. It's dangerous, and unless you're going to kung fu kick somebody like the Highlanders winger did against the Waratahs, excuse me, a couple of seasons back. But no, I've got really no issues the way it is at the moment. I think after a couple of years, the players do now know the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I sort of think, it's funny. Like with the other ones, I think it actually comes down to officiating, tell you the truth. This is I think they have got it right now, but it's too often that there's inconsistency around the policing of that area. You go back to the, I'm pretty sure it was in the Ireland-England game, and Itoje going up for a ball, which he was never going to get, and he takes out the Irish fullback whose name I've forgotten, who wasn't actually a fullback, who's a centre. But anyway, and they were targeting him, and because he wasn't really a fullback, Itoje's gone up. He's not going to catch the ball. They did review it, and it's just like, they said it was fine, and it's just like, I'm sorry, I really scratched my head on that. There is no way he is in a position to be able to catch the ball. He takes the man out in the air. So as long as they get consistent and rule it correctly, then the players are sort of protected. You're going to have accidental collisions. We know that. But in general, a lot of the issues around high ball is when players who are not legitimately contesting the ball take out the guy in the air.
Yeah, clumsy
efforts, or downright knowing what they're doing and being cynical and saying, "Oh, look, I'm looking up that way, and I've just got my arm up there." And in fact, all they're trying to do is disrupt the guy in the air, and they're not trying to go for the ball.
Yeah, so on the whole, we're quite happy with the laws there. There's a bit of chat about youth, or in the live chat. So here's some comments that he says about youth. It's top level that sets an example. That's your recruitment tool. Too many academies, too much training of kids from a young age, where backyard rugby used to be the way to go in New Zealand. It was all about fun. The 10,000 hours you're supposed to have to become an expert was gained in the backyard or park. A lot of fun's been taken out of it. I think that comes down to the coaches, isn't it? Is the coaches need to learn how to coach sessions that are fun to play, rather than coach sessions that are just about drills. For me.
Yep. Paul, I agree with that. And once again, we also think about that gap between sort of schoolboy rugby, that gap between schoolboy rugby and club rugby, where there's a lot of players who haven't had, who might have played second 15 or third or fifth grade. They've gone to club and they actually haven't had that really good quality training, even though they've gone to sort of under 19s, under 20s at a club. I'd like to see basically all unions, or the New Zealand Rugby Football Union, put money into having guys who are rural district coaches that are qualified, that can basically help coach the coaches, to talk about everything from obviously from a kid's ability to technique, etc. And I think that's an area that gets missed. I don't worry too much about the top level, because they've put into place processes. I mean, to say players are not smart enough to sort of work out how those processes work, well, they probably should be doing something else.
Just on that front, I mean, obviously being involved with my son's rugby, Auckland Rugby does send, they've got Western, Centrals, East, South, junior development reps. I've forgotten the actual titles, but they come around if you put your hand up, or they actually do hold sessions. So my son played Ripper Rugby last year. It was the last year for Ripper for him. So Auckland Rugby came around in the last week of Ripper Rugby training and held a session on, introducing them to tackle for the following year. There's also, before the season starts this year, with them being new to tackle, we'll be having a couple of sessions around how to tackle and, contact, etc. So, it is happening. So, just making sure that it's widespread and enough, because one session's probably not enough to do it, but it's just making sure that, it's good. But it's what you said, it's coaching the coaches so that we're able to go back and make sure we're teaching our kids the right thing.
I remember talking to one of my ex-bosses. He was doing American football coaching, and one of the things that he talked about was saying that basically that he thinks contact should be as early as possible, because then whilst when the kids have got the low levels of skill, they've not got the bulk to really hurt each other too much. Whereas if you leave the contact till too late, and once they're actually a size, then and then they actually are trying to learn how to do contact when they're older, then you have a problem, because you do have, when they get it wrong, it causes proper injuries. Whereas at younger age, let's be honest, kids bounce back much better than older folks. Finally, the final point he makes is the most important thing is getting coaches to understand that the safest techniques are the most effective techniques. That tends to be forgotten with the development and professionalisation of the game. So when we got someone as influential and as such a sort of thought leader in rugby coaching as Wayne Smith talking about these things, people are going to sit up and notice. And I think these topics are going to get discussed more and more over the next few weeks, probably months as well. Super Rugby then. It was her last weekend for the first time. So we got through that in half an hour rather than the full hour. Wow, there we go. Super Rugby then. What were your key thoughts from the weekend, Stephen? Because I thought there was a lot of rusty play that we haven't seen in previous years at the beginning of the season.
Well, I think there's probably a couple of teams that you could arguably say burgled wins. The Hurricanes, I think they probably burgled a win. You could say that you could arguably say that the Crusaders burgled a win from a New Zealand standpoint, and you could almost say even the Highlanders not fully at their best on Friday night. And I know we discussed a lot of that game in the after show. Also, sort of took the win, but I suppose the other real key thing that came out, a couple of really good individual performances sort of stood out from young guys who stepped up at the last minute and basically came out and did the business. And I'm sort of talking about sort of Josh Ioane on Friday night for the Highlanders. I thought for a guy playing his first ever Super Rugby game, stepped up brilliantly, and somebody like Braden Ennor stepping in to replace Jack Goodhue into that centre position. Well, he showed he was pretty amazing as well. But in the main, my takeaway looking across the board, it wasn't too bad a weekend, and I think probably the number one game being the Crusaders Blues game, which we'll touch on, but probably a really good performance out of South Africa too by the Bulls. They look really impressive.
Yeah, talk about young players or Super Rugby debuts. Sinatla, if you want to know why the blitz blocks aren't doing quite so well in the sevens this year, all you've got to do is look at someone like Sinatla, who was in that system, who went and scored 2 lovely tries for the Bulls at the weekend, is missing, as is I've gone blank, Quagga Smith, and also the speedster they have. Not Sinatla. Anyway, but yeah, talking about debutants, we had a few of them this weekend. The New Zealand games all seem to be close, but the South African ones seem to be sort of bigger margins, weren't they, Osrin?
Yeah, look, I mean, the interesting one that I'm curious about is that obviously the Bulls sort of giving the Stormers quite a bit of a dust up, and is that because of the board back office issues that they're going through? I mean, I think I read something. Do the Stormers not even have a coach or something, or there's some dispute over the coach situation. So, it's just like when I first see the score and saw a few of the highlights for the Bulls Stormers game, you sort of like, wow, that was pretty impressive performance by the Bulls. And then you sort of wonder, but okay, how much of that's because the Stormers are a bit disorganized or, in chaos?
Yeah, there was a with the Bulls' performance, there was a mixture of really, really good and not so good, but looks like they've got a little bit more about their game as well. I was really impressed with Henrik Pollard and also Jesse Creel. If he can keep that sort of form up, those are guys that are going to be a real integral part of the South African team when they hit the World Cup. Really, 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 really impressive. But I don't know if it was a real total foot on the throat performance. But on saying that, it was game one.
Hey, I just thought, because I know Steve doesn't want to go totally Taniwha on this show, so I was just like, I'll put a big ups in there for Tom Robinson. I mean, for a guy that a lot of people don't know much about, obviously I've seen a bit of Tom Robinson from Mitre 10, and I thought, he doesn't look too bad. But that game that he had, for a debut game, I thought, and against the Crusaders pack, that was quite something, really. Very mature. I mean, yeah, he got a yellow card, but there was actually debate about who should have got the yellow card in that situation. But I thought it was a very mature performance from him, someone that looked like he'd been there for a while.
Yeah, I thought the yellow card was more of I think he took one for the team, because we were thinking to myself, man, you guys need to be defending that. When you looked at it, it just had momentum, and I don't think he had any other opportunity but to try and drag it down and take his chances. Unfortunately, Bryant wasn't having any part of it, and he got a yellow card.
But he came back on and played an absolute blinder after that, to be fair to him.
Second half start. Yeah, it was just phenomenal.
And I'll tell you what, one thing I did notice, he did come into his own when he was just in a little bit of a wider channel, maybe, and probably maybe even a second or third channel, running off one of those props, because he's a big, rangy guy, and he can get his hands through the tackle. And from what I understand, he's one of the quickest in the team over the first 20-odd metres. I was really disappointed that early in the game, Milani Nainai had an opportunity with him on the outside. Should have just passed and backed up, Just simple basics.
And for such a tall, rangy guy, you do need to go one up, one down.
Yeah. we had that before.
Talking of, keeping the debutants things going, Papialehi, another person you've been talking about for a lot. Stephen, he came through and had a decent game as well.
Oh, listen, I think we obviously seen him in the Blues before. Last year we got a little bit of a taste last year of what this kid's capable. I mean, to say was.
I'm talking about totally the wrong person here. Parry Parkinson, who I'm thinking of, was who I meant to talk about. Josh, sorry. Papialehi obviously got picked for the All Blacks. Yes, everyone knows him. Jeez.
But, he's still young in the scheme of things, though, Paul. He's just one of those younger players like Parry Parkinson, who's going to be a big part of New Zealand rugby after this year's World Cup. These are guys we're going to see come together over the next few years. But on Parry Parkinson, he's definitely a talent. When you consider who he was up against, hey.
And interestingly enough, because we've actually noticed Parry Parkinson, and we've sort of, Steve, you've obviously talked a bit more with more detail on that, but we've all known, about his ability, and we've sort of seen him Mitre 10 again, and sort of wasn't so much of a surprise. But when you look at it, for people that might have been watching who don't really follow Mitre 10, go and watch that game. There's another guy that's put a big performance on his debut match and looked like someone that should be there. He's been playing there with quite a bit of experience.
So new guys was a big theme of the weekend. Another theme of the weekend, we kind of touched on it there, was Tom Robinson coming back from that card and performing better. We saw the Highlanders get a red card and then perform better. There seems to be a bit of a theme this weekend that also, if you get a card, you get better, not worse. And very few teams were able to take advantage of the opposition being down a man.
So the Tom Robinson yellow card, in that game there were 2 yellow cards, And whilst both teams had so Crusaders got one, Blues got one, and when both teams had the yellow cards, no points were scored against them either. So apart from the fact that Tom Robinson's one, the penalty try was given while he was on the field. After he left for 10 minutes, there was no points scored against the Blues.
No.
When the Crusaders had their yellow card, Blues didn't score any points against them either.
I'm not sure I'm not sure the Highlanders conceded any when they got the red card either. Anyway, but yeah, generally the sides that had cards against them performed better than the sides that were supposed to get the advantage, which was a theme this weekend.
So what you're saying is that when the team offends and should be getting penalised, the team that hasn't offended should send someone off.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah. Listen, if I was looking for no, I don't want to go all over the place, but if I was sort of looking for three really good performers of the weekend, I know from that Blues Crusaders game, I'll tell you what, if Artie Savia, and we saw how good Artie Savia was for the Hurricanes, I taped that game and watched a bit of it on a Sunday evening, and I just thought he was absolutely superb. And I thought to myself, man, if he's that good, well then Matt Todd is not far behind either, because I thought Matt Todd against the Blues. And once again, I think you get this great view watching games from end on and just watching the running lines of these players. And I'll tell you what, Matt Todd, boy, he's downright he was awkward. He just gets himself, he's disruptive at breakdown, doesn't miss tackles, and he's everything that you need in a seven. And I thought the two sevens for this time of the season, if they're the two current All Black sevens at the moment with Kane injured, man, there's going to be some competition for those placings. But sticking on the loose forward theme, well, I'm call me a little bit biased, but man, Akira Ioane, gee, when that kid gets going, he's got X factor and absolute spades.
I'm trying to figure. So I'm still struggling to understand what they're asking him to work on, because I saw some stats for his performance over the weekend. I think there was a New Zealand 15 that was put together, and he was then the reporter that did it put him in at number 8 and put some stats around what he did, and he got 7 tackles, second most highest in the team. He made 100 meters off the runs that he made, and so there was quite a big workload that he was involved with. So. And he scored the try as well. So I'm scratching my head on what he's supposed to be working on.
Well, let's just see if he can stay in games for the full 80 minutes for the first 5 weeks, and then we'll be comfortable. Going away now to the Sharks, and then going away, and then moving on to the... Sorry, is it Sharks? Yes, Sharks. And then going on to Jaguares. If he stays in the game for 80 minutes for those 2 games, then I think we can say that what he's been told to work on, he's worked on. Because he has faded out in the past. Another theme for me from the weekend was the was definitely kicking and perhaps depth of squads. One of the points I think that Ashwin, or maybe you made, or I've heard someone made, was that perhaps the South African sides were coming into this, had sort of played their internationals and all their top players in their pre-season games. They came into this warmer than the other sides, because their kicking was much better this weekend than the early games.
You're talking about from the hand or off the tee?
Mainly off the tee, sorry. Off
the tee, yeah. I only saw highlights of the some of the other games, so I can't fully comment. But yeah, basically off the games that I saw, Australia and New Zealand. I saw the Brumbies game. Brumbies Rebels game, Waratahs Hurricanes game, and then the New Zealand ones. And yeah, kicking was not great off the tee in any of those games, actually.
No, I think what summed it up for me was Bernard Foley missing absolute sitter, which
for him.
It's like who knew? Even the commentators were telling us how ice cold he is when he comes to kicking those goals.
I'm sure the commentators had already written it down in their notebook to say, 3 points. Waratahs in the lead.
But I think that's really harsh. We had Brad Webber, awful kicking. Harry Plummer came on and played well, but he didn't make his kicks. Trey Black didn't make his kicks. We had Moanga didn't get a single kick over. And then the person who's getting all the flack is the guy that made 5 out of 6 kicks, because the one he missed was the one that would have won them the game. Whereas all these other kickers have been missing a hat load of kicks. He missed just the one. And it just shows you what a hard life it is to be a kicker.
Yeah, but I think the surprise there is the fact is that, I mean, Moanga's a surprise because, I mean, obviously one of the things that last year's conversation was, especially around the All Black side of things, was, Moanga needs to start because Barrett's kicking's not accurate enough and Moanga whacks him over from anywhere. And then he didn't get a thing at Eden Park, which was really surprising. But the Bernard Foley situation is because he's a test player that's not just played one or two tests. He's experienced, coming out of every pore on his body. Steps up for a relatively easy kick and misses it. That's why I suppose if it was from the sideline, then you sort of say, oh, hey, look, it was from the sideline. But if you actually go back to that game, the commentator basically they did the whole commentator's playbook sort of thing, right? It's like, okay, now they have to earn a penalty within their half, kick it out, get it close to the halfway line, move into the Hurricanes half, get another penalty, and then have a shot at goal. Achieved it, missed the goal.
was almost perfect.
Almost. Right out of the playbook.
One thing I will say about the wind conditions at Eden Park, and we saw some pretty changeable winds over the weekend. Like on Saturday, we pretty much had a northwesterly on the Saturday, and on the Sunday, it did a complete turnaround, and we had an easterly basically coming in, and the northeasterly was coming over the back of our shoulder, and I just suspect the goal kickers, I don't think they were judging the wind that well. We had a good view of Plummer's long range attempt, and that was always going to the right, where he should have been punching that to the left hand upright, and he did exactly the same thing with his conversion, and I think that was a real disappointing thing for me. And he'll learn as a young fella that, if you get a second bite at the cherry, just be aware of where the actual wind conditions going. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did Altena Black just miss the one penalty attempt, and that was
I think so. My memory, my recollection is that he didn't kick too badly.
No, and the one that he did miss was pretty much out on the touchline. But the Blues can kick themselves. The Blues can kick themselves for not taking on the ones that the other opportunities that they should have actually looked at. I mean, to say they threw an easy 3-pointer, which was out in front of the sticks just before halftime. Which, listen, Akira was held up over the line, and they'd all be heroes. But in reality, in games like that, you've just got to stay in the context. It was a kind of similar game to the Mitre 10 Cup final, where even Auckland were down by, a similar score at halftime, maybe even more. But they came back, and it looked like the Blues were actually going to have that momentum. But I just think that, the Crusaders, but this is where the All Blacks came to the fore. Somebody like Romano came off, and man, he obviously adds a bit to their scrum, and credit to them. They brought in, is it Michael Alalatua who's in their squad? Yep. They brought him on. He's a big lump of a lad, and you're right. Despite losing Fennell, even I don't know how many they were packing down, Paul, maybe 7 at the time. They still packed the strong scrum when required.
Yeah, I think we saw Moody in that Crusaders team is essential for that scrum, because that scrum went backwards and when he came back on again, that scrum suddenly steadied up again. So yeah, it's interesting how one player can be such a big influence on how the scrum goes either way.
Listen, just on a couple of the other games that I saw, I did watch the Sunwolves. I did watch the Sunwolves game, and listen, they'll have to sort their set piece out. They just got absolutely monstered at set piece time. They scored a really nice try in the first half, but they just couldn't get anything going. The Sharks were smart enough to work out. We'll just take on these guys through the forwards. Instead of kicking for goal, we'll kick to the corners. They're not going to stop our driving maul, and that's exactly what happened. So maybe I think in the case of the Sunwolves, just missing a lot of their Japanese, ironically, missing a lot of their Japanese players at the moment, and probably the leadership of also Michael Leach.
Yep, and with also Brown, the head coach, wasn't available this weekend because we were down in Singapore. Hopefully he'll be at the ground next weekend when they are hosting the Waratahs in Japan. I guess my final one was going to be that injuries are already an issue for some sides. We've seen for the Chiefs that missing Falcon, Marty Banks, not Marty Banks, Falcon, Marty McKenzie, Damon McKenzie, and Deb Rossini meant that they had to basically play a centre at 10 who played a very good game, to be fair to him, Ledger did, but yet we're seeing that there are teams that already are having injury issues. It's happened to the Chiefs yet again.
Yeah, for the Chiefs last year it was the curse of the props. This year it's the curse of the first fives. You just you don't want to be a first five down at the Chiefs at the moment. Yeah, it pretty much happens. Probably, I think the worst injury I think I could think of at the top of my head was probably Tim Perry. Was that a broken arm? If I recall that he marched off with. So yeah, it's just seems to be a fact of life. Probably the ground's a little bit harder. The contact, everybody wants to start well, plenty at stake. So yeah, unfortunately, just a fact of life. But that's why they pick these massive squads.
Yep,
opens up opportunities for other players.
What opportunities for other players like Beaver to come back?
I was going to say we should have actually, we talked about Auburn Ledger, or Heath Ledger as you like calling him.
Yep.
It actually had a really good game when you consider how many times has he played first five, and we saw that time in one of the Chiefs' tries where he kicked in the same play. He kicked from his right foot, and they regathered the ball, and then from the next ruck or so, he kicked from the left foot, and they scored the try. So, Auburn Ledger actually, I thought, deserves some full credit as well.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. But when we saw injuries, we saw Retallick go off at half time. He's apparently okay though. Sean Stevenson also went off in that game. But yeah, injuries are going to be a part of this season already, and we're only into week. We only had 1 week down. Apparently, Dane McKenzie is back for their game this weekend. Again, I've just gone blank. Away to the Brumbies.
I was going to say, Paul, they're even talking about maybe Bowden Barrett being available for the Hurricanes with their injury issues, because apparently James Marshall has an injury at the moment. That's an irony, because he was a replacement for Fletcher Smith. I just think it was just a straight substitution, but he only lasted about 5 minutes in the Hurricanes Waratahs game. So there's already talk that they're going to rush Bowden Barrett early for the clash against the Crusaders this weekend.
And that's got to be your clash of. We'll get on to that in a second. Actually, what games you're looking forward to this weekend? Just moving on, then, let's quickly talk about Six Nations. We've got France versus Scotland. Now, Scotland have got something like a full match day 23 injured, so that's a real shame, especially including people like Russell and Hogg potentially out. So even though France have been poor. France got a good chance of getting their first maiden victory. Obviously, Ireland going to Italy is going to be an Ireland victory by a lot. But the game there to watch, folks, is Wales versus England. That is both teams unbeaten, both teams with 2 victories under their belts. Wales on their longest ever unbeaten run of games. England playing some really good rugby, but have picked up a couple of injuries. So yeah, try and catch that game, Wales versus England, either live, which is I think it's like a 5:15 a.m. kickoff New Zealand time, or try and get a recording, because that game is going to be a cracker.
Yeah, I was going to say, Paul, probably a couple of little injuries might have a little bit of an effect for both in the England Wales game, especially. You've got obviously Mako Vunipola, who's out for the rest of the Six Nations, so a real loss for them. But I see no reason why they can still recapture their form again. You look at the Welsh; they've got a couple of guys coming back from Lee Halfpenny coming back from a long-term head knock, so it'll be his first game in a while. And you've also got Dan Biggar, who's coming back from injury as well, but he'll have to prove himself with a fitness test. I don't know if they lose a hell of a lot there, because Gareth Ainscombe will probably slot into that first 5 spot. But listen, I'm picking England. I think I think they've got a real, they're on a high at the moment, and they are confident, and they're playing some really good code.
I've actually picked Wales this one. My predictions for the Super Rugby, Major League Rugby, Six Nations, Women's Six Nations, the ARC, the Top 14, the Pro 14, the Gallagher Premiership. Those are all out on the website, so check out DrivingMaul.com. I've gone for England because I've gone for Wales because England have benefited from the fact that the last two teams they've played have been playing makeshift 15s, which has left space for them to kick into, and that's been their big attacking weapon. We're not going to see that with either Liam Williams or Half Payne at the back. They're not going to have that same space to kick into. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can change their style. So I've gone for Wales by 7 in that one. Ashwin, how are you picturing that game going?
Yeah, I'm sort of seeing England. I understand what you're saying about the kicking game, and that'll be covered by Wales as long as they pick normal people in their rightful positions. But I think also the England forward pack has been quite sort of, I can't think of the right word. It's not coming to me, but basically they've just been commanding the pitch really. Really they didn't give Ireland an inch. I know Ireland had a couple of, you might call starting players out, but at the end of the day, the replacements were just as good or close enough. And England really dominated them. Their defence is smothering, it's suffocating. And really doesn't give other teams much of an opportunity at anything really. So I'm actually picking England to go that. Wales, they're going to be, obviously as you mentioned, they've gone a long time without being beaten, but they really haven't played anybody in the top. They haven't played anybody in the top 3. So. Yeah, I'm actually thinking now England's actually got quite a squad there at the moment, and I'm picking them to do the job over Wales in the Principality.
So I'll be live straight after that game on YouTube with my post-match reaction, so do join me for that. I've not actually figured out who my guest is yet, but I'll be trying to reach out to someone in the UK to join me for that one. And then, boys, looking at the Super Rugby games, Stephen, which one... Okay, let's just make sure we get listening to the question here. Which one game are you looking forward to this weekend?
Which one game am I looking forward to the weekend? I'm just, as we're talking, looking at the draw at the moment. I've got to be honest. I know it probably should be a local derby, but from a Blues piece, the Sharks have never been easy in Durban for the Blues. So I'm looking at their development to see if there's maybe a little even more improvement on the back of what we saw against the Crusaders. So but it's purely from a parochial point of view, the Blues Sharks game, but from a local piece. I'd like to say the Crusaders Hurricanes, but I think the Crusaders will blow the Hurricanes pretty much off the paddock down in Christchurch.
So, Ashwin, was I not very clear in my question, do you think?
Yeah. No,
I would have done the same thing. I would have done roughly the same thing. Because at the end of the day, if you were going to say, what's the one game you're looking forward to looking at watching this over this weekend, it wouldn't have been a Super Rugby match. Because when you look at that, I agree with Steve. I don't think the Hurricanes are actually going to have a shot down there in Christchurch. I think Crusaders will roll all over the top of them. And so I would have gone Wales England as being my game of the weekend. Out of the Super Rugby games, I think out of all of those games, when you look at who's the closest ones there, you're probably looking at Brumbies Chiefs really to be sort of one that sort of could be a right ding dong battle. So that could be a pretty good one to watch, not on a Friday night but a Saturday night.
Yeah, it's disappointing for Australian fans as they don't have a Friday night game. And as in New Zealand, the great thing is we know we've got a 7:35 game on every single Friday and every single Saturday during the regular season. And it's a shame that Australia don't have the same thing. They had one last weekend, but they haven't this weekend. So you can't really plan your weekends and go, oh, I'm always going to watch that, because it doesn't always happen. So that's a shame. The other side of that, the flip side of the Sharks Blues ones is also to see the Sharks obviously got that big win over the Jaguar, over the Sunwolves. So are they the real deal, or was that just bad opposition? And for that similar one, I'm looking forward to Jaguares versus the Bulls Because again, the Bulls got a big win over the Stormers, but is that because the Stormers were poor, or is that because the Bulls are actually the real deal this season? I think we're going to learn quite a lot from that game between the Jaguares and the Bulls. So you're aware, I'll be doing live post-match reaction to the Highlanders versus the Reds, the Crusaders versus the Hurricanes, and also the Jaguares versus the Bulls this weekend. And then also on the Monday, I'll be trying to do live post-match reaction to the Major League Rugby game, and I've just gone blank, and that's the... Oh, who is it that's playing? Oh, Seattle Seawolves versus Rugby United New York. So last year's champions against the only unbeaten team left in the competition. So that's on Monday. So 5 live post-match reactions coming to you this weekend. Boy, that's a lot of rugby.
Very much so.
So thank you everyone for joining us. I just want to remind everybody that we've got tomorrow tickets will go on sale to our watch party to watch the Jaguares versus the Blues at Whitematter Rugby Club, and also come along for the Ronnie Clark interview that I'll be doing. $25, and for that you also get a buffet brunch as well. So come and join us for that watch party. Normally, if you want to come and see and hear a famous All Black get interviewed, you're looking at $100 plus for those sort of tickets. So this is a real opportunity to get to see one of the legends of Auckland rugby talk about his playing days, and also how he's gone in his post-playing days as well. Now, Stephen, have we managed to get you into double figures yet for followers on Twitter?
No, still on 11.
Oh, 11. Oh, yes.
Only 11.
Go on then. Where can people find you on Twitter to have a chat about rugby?
It's at Stephen_H.
At Stephen73_H, isn't it?
At Stephen73_H, beg your pardon.
There we go. And Ashwin, where can people find you?
Oh, yeah, I just said NZ Fatso on Twitter pretty much. And, come along and I'll see you there.
And obviously I'm at DrivingMaul on Twitter. Don't forget to subscribe. I can't point because my camera's decided to freeze. Obviously I need a new laptop. But so yes, don't forget to subscribe, comment, click on other videos and all of that wonderful stuff. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow night with the All Blacks edition, and we'll be telling you who's got a ticket to Japan, who's potentially in the waiting lounge, and who isn't even going to the airport. So from an All Blacks point of view. So join us for the All Blacks edition tomorrow night at 8 p.m.